What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the next episode of Mic'd Up with Max Webster. Today we welcome on a young New York Giants content creator, someone I'm excited to get to know a little bit more and have on this channel. If you're in any Giants streams, you know who he is. My guy, Alex from Big Blue in the Bronx. How you doing, my guy?
I'm doing well. I'm very happy to be on this YouTube channel. I think Max does a great job of what he does, and he does something different. A lot of content creators want to put their opinions out there, and they want to get the more subscribers and all the views and stuff. But Max is known in the Giants community, and it's not being a content creator in terms of Giants, but he interviews them, and I think that's something different, but I also think that's good, and I think he could definitely grow from there. So Max, you do a great job, and keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it, man. So for the people who haven't checked out your channel yet, who might be subscribers, why don't you tell a little bit about what it is that you do over there, the things that you talk about, where they can find you, any different platforms you might be on. Just kind of talk about your general channel and where people can find you.
All right, so I am a Giants Yankees YouTube content creator. I started out as Giants, then I'm a big Yankee fan, so about, I would say, July of last year I made the decision, I'm gonna start Yankees. I know what I'm talking about. I may not go through every single stat there is in baseball with analytics and stuff, but I'll incorporate in that equally with the Giants content creating. And what I've been trying to do lately is I'm really trying to get to know the community with the New York Yankees just as of late, because opening day is coming up, and I've done a great job of, at least in my opinion, done a great job of getting to know the Giants content creators, Hub and other guys around. That's kind of what I did, when I started out. But I do want to do the same for the Yankees, so I don't leave them out. But I'm available, obviously, on YouTube. When I did the podcast, Spotify, and all those platforms, popular platforms, and also Twitter and Instagram. You'll find me more active on Twitter, giving opinions, giving takes, and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I've checked out some of your stuff. You got good vibes going on over there. Good opinions. Always got something good to say. But this channel, like I said, right now I'm doing all the New York Giants content creators just because that community already knows me. But this podcast is going to go far beyond just New York Giants content creators and interviewing them. So when I get outside of that bubble, I might have to hit you up to give me some Yankees content creators that you might recommend or have interest to get known. And same for you people who watch and listen to this podcast. If you guys have any content creators that you watch that I haven't had on this channel yet, just hit me up on Twitter, post a comment down below, and I'll try to get these people on as best as I can. Some people are busy, some people are hard to get a hold of, but I will do my best to get everybody you guys ask on this channel, and I appreciate all your guys' support. But so this podcast is all about getting to know you, Alex. Like I said before we even were recording this episode, I haven't really gotten to talk to you a whole lot. It's all about, like, whenever we talked, we're just in a live stream on someone else's channel together, and it's no, like, dialogue between us. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more and get to know you because I haven't really had that opportunity yet. So we were talking a little bit before we went live. Just tell us, might be a dumb question because your channel's name or podcast name is Big Blue in the Bronx, but, like, how old you are, like, area you live in, and some maybe positives and negatives of living where you're at, like things you like about it, things you don't like, some things you might want to change, or if you plan on moving somewhere, where that would be.
Okay, so to start off with a biographical format, other than the YouTube channel, in 2003, I'm 17 years old, so I was born in Marine Park, Brooklyn. Then about 2.5 years later, we, as a family, were planning to move up. And I was told this story, you don't remember when you're 2 years old. But I was, we were planning to move to northeastern Pennsylvania in a town called Albrightsville. And for a little while, when the house was getting built, we stayed in upstate New York in a house that my grandparents owned in Greenville. That's probably a spit away from Saratoga Springs, which is where the horse races are and all types of that. So we stayed there for a little bit. Then afterwards, what happened was, we went to Albrightsville, stayed there, and really lived there for about 12 years. Then in 2018, about August 15th, the exact date, we moved back to Brooklyn. And there's a lot of people who move from New York to Pennsylvania and to states like
Yeah.
Florida, but there's not a lot of people who go back to New York.
Right.
My family, my individual family, just happens to be the few that do that. And obviously, there's people who have vacation homes, and there's a lot of people from Pennsylvania who used to live in the city but still have jobs there, and they do the commute because obviously you get higher wages and stuff like that and higher benefits in New York, but it's just cheaper to live in Pennsylvania. So we were
Right.
one of the that went back to New York because we just missed it. The mobility around, you can go to a store around the corner, you don't have to drive everywhere. There was a lot of negatives, but at the same time, a lot of positives about Pennsylvania, but we just had to get out of there. And positives and negatives as to where I'm at. It's a quaint neighborhood. It's not too bad. COVID never really struck us that badly, in my opinion. Everyone's just being safe and whatnot, wearing the masks, whatever.
Right.
In terms of mobility, you always got something around the corner. And just in general, New York, living in New York, and something we missed in Pennsylvania is the fact that there's so many diverse foods. There's Turkish food,
Absolutely.
there's Japanese food, there's Korean food, there's all types of foods. And no matter the price, you get to experience what someone else's culture looks like. So those are some of the positives there. The negatives, to be honest, I really don't list a lot. But in the coming years, in the recent years, a lot of these houses in this quaint neighborhood that used to be cheap are, once people buy them and fix them up and whatever, they go on sale for about $1 million.
Right.
So obviously real estate's going up with people moving out of New York, and then obviously people still moving into New York, maybe from Manhattan to Brooklyn or something like that. But the prices in terms of housing have gone up, so a lot of people just rent apartments and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
I mean, the housing market everywhere is crazy right now. Like I've said in my episodes, I recently separated the Air Force. I moved back to upstate New York. I'm trying to buy a house because I got a family of my own. Right now, we're just staying with my parents, and I'm hopping back and forth between places until we can find a house. But there's houses even in upstate New York right now. They're selling in there's houses that are selling in a couple of hours after being on the market, if not a couple of days. The ones that are worth buying anyways. And when they do sell, like say the house is listed at $185,000, $200,000, it's gonna sell for at least $30,000 over the list price because so many people are trying to buy right now, and it's just making it such a competitive market. And it's a crazy time to buy a house. But yeah, why don't you? Because you guys said you moved to Pennsylvania, so maybe elaborate on what took you there in the first place, and what ended up bringing you back to Brooklyn in the end.
So 2003, obviously, me and my twin brother were born. A lot of people, or maybe very little, know that I have a twin brother. Sometimes I brought him on streams to do mock draft Jets picks. But we live.
Are you guys identical or fraternal?
We're fraternal.
Okay.
And I'm the older one. But we lived in a small house in Marine Park, and just like then, there was not many, I would say, houses there that were affordable pricing. And my dad didn't really like New Jersey. My parents weren't that crazy about it, despite some friends talking to them about it. They weren't really familiar with other states. But one of my dad's friends from work, he said, listen, I'll take you up to Pennsylvania one day. And I don't think it was the exact area we lived in, but he showed him, what Pennsylvania looks like. And he lives up there to this day. He'll be doing some stuff in a couple of months, but he likes the area generally. Meanwhile, my mom had a different opinion, but we moved up there. They built the house. It wasn't like you're buying a house or renting a house. They built the house.
Oh, nice.
So we had a big house then. We used to host a lot of parties. It was really fun. We lived in that house for about, I would say, 10 years. And then, stuff happened. Then we moved out of the house and actually went to a farmhouse. My time there, I'm just generally a city boy. That's why I tell everybody, but I do have that. My friends make fun of me because, you have that redneck background, because I used to, take care of horses and take care of chickens on that farmhouse for, when we lived there 2.5 years.
Right.
So my sister is 2 years older than me, or 2.5, 3 years older. And right now she's sophomore year in college. So what her concern was many years ago, there were not many great colleges uh, up in Pennsylvania. There was, far and few between someone getting in or whatever. And even those colleges like Penn State and Pittsburgh and Temple, they were far drives. And the situation just wasn't mobile enough for someone, you can't take a train to a college, there's no transit up there, there's no public transit. So that was one of the concerns. My grandparents were getting older and they're in their 80s now. They needed somebody to look after them because my uncle lives upstate. He doesn't really come around that often. So, my mom decided, and she was talking with my grandparents, I would say May of 2018. And, she brought it to my attention and said, listen, what do you think of moving back to Brooklyn? And it took me a little bit to kind of adjust the platform and kind of adjust to just the general surrounding area.
Right.
Because my high school back then was a 600 kid school. Now I'm moving to a 600, 700 kid class of students.
Right.
It's going to be interesting, obviously, the way they do graduation this year because of all the COVID stuff. But I had to.
Now, are you back in person school or are you doing online? How's that working for you this year?
The way we started was like 2 days in school, and I really liked it because, it was I would say, step towards normalcy. Then they shut it down. Then they brought it back, but it's not really going back to school. The kids who go back to school, they just go in the gym and go to a assigned room and sit on their laptop. It's basically, you put your mask on and you learn what you can from home, but you're sitting on your laptop. Everyone is on the laptop. You're not physically learning. So that's why I said, you know what, with all the content creating stuff and all the, stuff I could do in my lifetime, I could do that in my spare time and not waste a couple hours, in school.
Right.
But obviously that took adjusting with that big transformation and whatever. And I have adjusted well, despite obviously the COVID stuff. Baseball team is, great group of guys. The school is a great group of people. And, it's in Pennsylvania, just the general school district. A lot of people will agree with me if they ever come to watch this. But there's a lot of, I would say, favoritism and nepotism because it is a small community. It's a small community, and who is basically the way, in my opinion, you get around in terms of rankings up there. Here, right. We have like 3,000, 4,000 kids in school. You don't have to know somebody in order to get on a team or do something like that. That's kind of the issue I had with Pennsylvania on a different subject. But I think Utrecht, which is the high school I go to, very good high school, very clean, and a lot of positives that really overshadow the negatives in that aspect.
That's good. So, I mean, obviously, if you're a New York Giants and New York Yankees content creator, you have a lot of passion and love for these teams. But so do a lot of fans, right? So I want to know what drove you to want to turn your love for these teams into your podcast and YouTube channel. Like, what inspired you to go, you know what? I see all these other people out here creating content, and made you want to go do the same thing that they were doing as far as like having a platform.
So what a lot of people don't know about me is that actually a couple of years ago when I was in like third grade, I hated football. I absolutely hated it. I got into baseball first because of my brother and my best friend. Then when, I got into that, they also, football fans. So right. One was a Steelers fan, one was a Jets fan, so it was kind of diverse in that aspect. And I always used to hate when it was baseball off season because I couldn't, I just hated the fact that they were talking football. And I always used to try to bring up the Yankees off season. They're like, dude, it's football season, get into it. So I got into football a couple of years ago, and then, I'm passionate about those two teams precisely, the Yankees and Giants. And, I've always had this passion, and it started, I would say, after 8th grade, going into the first year of high school, because I would say that was around the time we moved. And I didn't know what to do with my career. I knew that I was not going to be a baseball player because baseball players, just for any sport, you need to keep up the athleticism. You need to exercise every day.
Absolutely.
I'm a pretty athletic person, but I do not have the passion. I just realized at that point, I'm not going to be a baseball player. So what I always wanted to do is talk about sports, and I knew what I was talking about. And obviously, there's a couple idols in the sports industry that I idolized, that I admire, that really got me into doing this stuff. So about, I would say 2 years ago, I started a Giants fan page, and I started talking about the Giants and basically putting my opinions and stuff, doing game recaps, whatever.
As in like a
So
blog type thing?
it wasn't. I think it was more of just a fan page type thing. I didn't really, like, you could say it was a blog. Um, I had a couple of people follow me that were kind of famous. I think
Oh,
Ahmad
nice.
Brad, one of them, Cody Latimer was another. Um, but starting with the pandemic, and actually 2 months, or actually a month before, in February, me, my brother, and my best friend, we all got journalism internships starting at this place called AL East Report online. And we did articles basically, on the AL East in the major leagues. So from then on, I started, I wanted to do as much writing as possible, which
Right.
was kind of a bad thing for me, I guess, because I was, totally busy, though, just keeping up with it, 3 different sites at once, whatever. So I moved on to a couple of different sites for Giants content creators who know these people. I worked at NY Giants Rush for a little bit as a writer, Empire Sports Media. Then I went on to All New York Sports, and then I'm currently the head of a website now called Uncut. But
Oh,
real,
nice.
what really drove me towards podcasting, and I knew this guy from a friend of a friend who at St. Francis College is big into broadcasting and has the same dream that I do. Uh, you know, I asked for the guy's number or Instagram or whatever, and he kind of talked me through it and said, listen, now that the pandemic is starting to happen and whatever, this would be the best time to try to start out and get your opinion through.
Right.
And then obviously, as I said before, how many months into it, I wanted to change my name. I kind of wanted to go into a broader audience, or I would say a bigger audience with the Yankees topic, because those are some of the most popular teams in New York, if not the most popular.
Right.
So, obviously putting my opinion out there, and then obviously to this day, I still both cover them, but I've gotten more off the podcasting side and just did videos because, recently I've had baseball season and college decisions and stuff like that. And I really can't commit to that. But when, I can make a video, I will. And I'll make the
Right.
effort to do that. And, the attention span, as many content creators know, is not great on YouTube. They can only, as the audience, they can only last about 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes 30 if they're real loyal.
Yeah.
So pretty much that story.
Yeah, so I guess with that being said, I have two questions that kind of derive from that. You said you kind of got into football 2 years ago because of all your friends. You'd bring up baseball, and they're like, "Hold up, it's football season. Like, change. Let's change the topic, right?" So I guess I know you're a New York Yankees fan, but I mean, being back and forth between New York and Pennsylvania, there's not only one New York team. You could have chosen a Pennsylvania team. The Giants definitely weren't good 2 to 3 years ago when you were looking at finding a team to like. So what drew you to the New York Giants?
To be honest with you, I really don't know. And this is, I just like the Giants, and I really, in my opinion, define liking a team and being a fan of a team as two different things.
Okay.
I always liked the Giants, but once again, how many years ago I hated football? And it's funny because my entire immediate family is Jets fans. So I don't know where I got Giants from. I clearly made the smarter decision. But that's kind of where that started. And my whole family's Yankees fans, so that's kind of where I would say I got the Yankees thing, and then obviously I made the smarter decision from whatever age I was to be a Giants fan, and started liking them, and then obviously late years on, I started watching them.
Right. And then I guess other than that, as far as your podcast goes, right? Because like you said, you're still in high school. This is your senior year, correct? You're looking at colleges to where to go and all that stuff. So I guess what is your goal for yourself after high school? Is it just to continue your podcast and hope that goes somewhere? Do you want to go more into the writing side of media versus the talking side on like podcasts and a YouTube channel, or are you just going to try to commit to college? Like what is your plan after high school? What do you want to do, and where do you hope that takes you?
Well, I do definitely want to continue what I'm doing, which is obviously the the content creating aspect. And I really defined it last year when I was having a talk with the friend of a friend that really got me into podcasting. There's two sides to the sports industry in terms of commentating and journalism. There's two sides: there's broadcasting and there's journalism.
Right.
Two different things. You can't really put everything into one. It's not the 1980s anymore. Two different ones. So I just generally have chosen the broadcasting side, and going to whatever college I go to, I have two in my mind right now. With that, I kind of want to learn more, not just the broadcasting side, but dealing with stuff behind the camera, because I know one of the colleges that I'm thinking about in my head, they have their own TV network. They just do generally broadcasting stuff, like
Right.
a news station kind of thing.
Okay.
Obviously stuff behind the camera, producing, whatever. So I think that's really neat. And what I've really defined in some of these colleges is that it's not going to be, right out of college, you're going to get a job as a broadcaster. That's not going to happen. So what my uncle told me a couple of months ago was, hey, there's this broadcasting school that WFAN is talking about for New York sports fans that listen to WFAN. There's all types of shows on there. And apparently, I haven't heard this, but there's this broadcasting school in Connecticut. I don't know the specific name. I know it's a broadcasting school that after high school, a lot of people go there and they get all sorts of jobs. And that's kind of a bridge towards their career. So
Okay.
I'm like, I'm definitely going to look at it, once I'm out of college, and even when I'm still in college, I'm going to look at it and see where my career goes from there, because I just, I want to keep going on this path rather than
Right.
just stop to something else.
So are you hoping that this podcasting path leads you to a company where you can work, or are you trying to go and start your own media company, much like Alex Wilson with Empire Media or Empire Sports Media?
I would say probably work for somebody like NFL Network or one of those guys. And what's tough about the sports industry now in terms of commentating, and this has a lot to deal with the uprisings of podcasts and YouTube channels, because there are a lot of clickbait, and there's a lot of, in my opinion, garbage on like ESPN and stuff like that. And I know that could potentially hurt me in the future commentating about that, but it's true. Like a lot of these, you probably know, because when the Giants signed Kenny Galladay and when they got Adoree Jackson, which is a signing I don't necessarily agree with, but guys like Mike Greenberg and Stephen A. Smith were basically laughing it off, just because they're not the Chiefs, just because they're not the Patriots or something like that, it doesn't fit their narrative or whatever, they kind of just shove the Giants off to the side. But
Right.
Something, Giants fans, when they get proven wrong next year, and I know they will, they'll be sorry.
Yeah, I agree, man. Well, I think that's a good transition, and I kind of have a habit of talking the content that these people cover somewhere in the middle of the episode. So if you're down, we can go ahead and transition to the New York Giants a little bit, and then maybe you can give me little nuggets on some things you're excited looking forward into the baseball season for the Yankees, because I played baseball. I've been to a couple Yankees games. I love going to Yankees games or baseball games in general, but it's just one of those sports that I can't really enjoy watching on television. I don't know what it is. But yeah, we can start with the Giants. So I guess I'll ask you, because you mentioned Adoree Jackson and you said you're not really a huge fan of that signing. What was your favorite move of this offseason, or most underrated move that you don't think is being talked about? You can give me one, both, up to you. I think a lot of people's favorite is probably Kenny Galladay, just because it was such a need. But maybe give me something a little bit different that you think is just kind of flying under the radar that you're a huge fan of that's happened so far this offseason for the New York Giants.
So I don't necessarily have a precise favorite. My two favorites, though, are Leonard Williams and Kenny Galladay. Giants get the big weapon, Kenny Galladay, pay him how much a year, whatever. With the cap increase over the next couple of years to the NFL TV deal, I think the Giants definitely made a smart decision. But, if the cap doesn't rise, or if it's, unexpectedly not rising and it doesn't go with the Giants' plans, the backloading may hurt them. now transitioning to Leonard Williams. And there was a lot of controversy among Giants fans and content creators. Should we rescind the franchise tag on Leonard Williams and trade him and stuff like that? They were getting angry. And I was too. I'm not going to lie, because, $25 million a year for a guy who's had one good year, one career year with the Giants.
Yeah.
And some of that could be done, some of that could be attributed to coaching. It doesn't really make any sense. But if you asked me how many months ago, I would have said Leo over Dalvin. I'm just happy that he is back as a New York Giant, because, losing both of them would have been bad. But losing him, his pass rushing ability, his dirty work on the defensive line, the stuff that he does thanks to the coaching as well, how do you necessarily replace that as quick as possible? If they would have gotten rid of him and maybe got rid of Dalvin as well, I think that the defense would have taken a step back in terms of the defensive line, because there's no, we don't have an Aaron Donald. Yeah. As much as Giants fans want to make, comparisons from Williams to Donald in terms of last season, we don't have that, interior piece that, is stepping in the wings. Dexter good, but he's not Aaron Donald. In terms of underrated moves, I really think Ryan Anderson is good. I haven't watched the film on him, but in terms of the snap counts that I've seen in terms of stats, I really don't think he ever got a fair shot in Washington. And when he did in 2019, when the defense wasn't necessarily the greatest, Jay Gruden got fired and all this other controversy and stuff, he had a really good year in terms of, his best career year yet. And if the Giants, and he's ideally the replacement for Kyler Fackrell, in my opinion, outside linebacker. And if they don't believe in O'Shane Ximines, maybe Carter, has some tough times rehabbing the injury or whatever, I think he can really step in there and do some wonders, because as I said, he had a good career year in 2019. He only played 49% of the snaps. The rest of the snaps in his career are in the teens. So they really never gave him a fair shot, especially, with the stacked defense that they have in Chase Young, Montez Sweat. So I think that's really an underrated signing in terms of the Giants offseason so far. And to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of this Adoree signing. Adoree Jackson, I have nothing against the guy. I would have liked signing him to a prove-it contract, but giving him $39 million over 3 years for a guy. And you could make the case they had a terrible defense in Tennessee last year. But the problem I have with that is that this guy, years before, and I've gotten mixed reviews from Titans fans, and I know that a lot of people say, Titans fans and other fan bases will guide you in the wrong direction in terms of opinion. But he never really lived up to the number one cornerback hype. He never really lived up to that.
Right.
And getting somebody who's technically a first-round bust and signing him to this big of a contract really scares me. So do I have faith in this Giants defensive coaching staff that they can coach him up? Sure. They did with Isaac Yiadom and Ryan Lewis, and obviously Adoree Jackson is an upgrade. But I think just this much money over the next couple of years, I just think that's, it doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, and I get your concern. I think the only thing that I'm really concerned with when it comes to Adoree Jackson is the injury history, right? If this man can stay healthy, I'm okay with the contract, because I kind of look at Leonard Williams, right? When he came here, he was kind of that player that you're explaining Adoree Jackson to be, right? He's a first-round bust. He's not living up to it. The Giants went and acquired him, and now Leonard Williams in this coaching staff and the defensive scheme. Even last year, he wasn't getting the sacks, but immediately he was an impact on this defense. So with this coaching staff, I expect Adoree Jackson to flourish as long as he can stay on the field, and that's my only concern with him. I did find out since the last episode, because when I interviewed Justin, the latest was that we were giving him $16 million in year one, and that shocked the heck out of me, because I didn't see how we could even afford that. Before that contract, we were projected to have like $1.9 million cap space at that time. Granted, we've restructured some players since then, and it's not quite the 16 mil. So it does look like it's going to be at least a 2-year commitment to Adoree. Not that I'm upset about that. But yeah, I kind of look at Adoree as a Leonard Williams type player, right? Someone who didn't work out on another team up to the expectations that that team had for him. So we're going to bring him in here. Yeah, we might have paid him a little bit more, but I mean, that's what free agency is, right? And I've heard a couple people say it. You pay A money for B players. That's just what free agency is. You overpay for the good players. And I think cornerback 2 was important. I will say, going into this offseason, I didn't think it was nearly as big of a need as a lot of other things. Like, I looked at the offensive line, I looked at wide receiver, I looked at even middle linebacker 2 before I considered cornerback 2, because I was a proponent of maybe even just doing a rotational for next year of Love and Yadam. We had them both on cheap contracts. If you want to bring in someone like Dre Kirkpatrick, or someone that's not going to have high expectations but can also compete for that position, that's where I would have gone. But I'm definitely not upset that we brought Adoree in here. He could be looked at as technically a number 1 corner, and I'm excited to see what he could do for this defense and what the coaching staff has planned for him. But as far as like an underrated move, in my opinion, I said it last time and I stick by it, man. I'm still just shocked by this Nate Solder contract. It's a pretty much 1 year, $3 million deal. And at the beginning of free agency, this man was supposed to be like a $17 million cap hit if we kept him, and it would have been like a 10.5 if we cut him, right? So the fact that we're keeping him for way less than we would have even if we cut him, and we don't have to go out there and sign someone again like Cam Fleming or get another swing tackle, I think that set up our free agency far better than anything else that we've done so far. And so that's my underrated move, not a new acquisition. But aside from Kenny Golladay, the person I'm most excited to see on this team next year is probably Kyle Rudolph. And it's just been so long, I feel like, since the Giants have incorporated a sure-handed, like, traditional tight end into their offense. I mean, we saw Caden Smith here and there, Levine Toilolo, but they're not really making impact plays. They're not guys that Daniel Jones is going to look for in the red zone. So to get someone like Kyle Rudolph, who's 6'6", super sure-handed. I don't think he has a drop ball in the last 2 years. So I was just super impressed, and it completely caught me off guard when we did it, because I didn't anticipate them signing a tight end. If anything, I thought maybe, we'd go after Kyle Pitts in the draft. But signing a tight end was probably the furthest thing from my mind as far as free agency goes. But I'm definitely not disappointed or upset in it, and that's probably what I look forward to most going to next year. Of course, Kenny Golladay, he's exciting. I'm sure he's going to be great in this offense, but I'm just trying to come in with outside of the box things, because I feel like a lot of people, when they come on here and I go, "What's your favorite move?" everybody's just going to go Kenny Golladay, right? Because even going into the offseason, we said, "What's our biggest need?" It's wide receiver. And even before free agency started, I was talking to people who were prepared to draft a wide receiver round 1, round 2, round 3, and I'm like, hold up, like, we still have other needs as a team. I'm all for getting that wide receiver, but man, there was some people ready to go all gung-ho with that position. I think as far as Kenny Golladay goes, and you can give me your opinion after this, I'm not too concerned with his injuries. The man had a hip flexor. He totally could have came back and played next year. There was something going on with that Lions organization that he just didn't want to play for anymore, and I think that's what the 3-day thing was about. It was about figuring out what happened, why Kenny didn't want to play for that organization. And I think other than that, as far as like missing games due to injury, he's only missed a couple in his several years. He just doesn't. He was a third-round pick, so the first couple of years, he wasn't a plug-and-play starter. He's not a Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle first year in the NFL, because he wasn't thought of as that, right? Kenny Golladay has kind of grown beyond what the expectations were for him coming into the NFL. So that's just my opinion on Kenny Golladay. I'm not too worried about his injury history, because I don't really think there's much of one, much like Saquon Barkley, right? He's got the high ankle sprain last year. ACL was a freak thing that just happens, right? Adrian Peterson, are people going to call him injury prone because he had an ACL tear? Like Dalvin Cook, right? He, at the beginning of his career, had some injury history, but the last 2 seasons, he's been a workhorse for that offense. He hasn't really missed any time the last 2 years. So, yeah, if you want to go ahead and give your thoughts on basically what I said, I kind of hogged the mic for a little bit there, but yeah, go ahead.
As far as the Kenny Golladay signing goes, injury history kind of definitely, worries me a little bit. But if it is something with the Lions organization, I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, as of right now, unless like some mystery report comes out there is no way of proving it. And I'm not saying, you're totally right there, but there is a lot of players that have had misgivings about the Lions organization. And in my opinion, now I don't know how it worked under Jim Caldwell and all these other coaches before, but Matt Patricia basically, when he went in there, he wanted to act like the cream of the crop, and he was trying to be Bill Belichick, which a lot of coaches have not succeeded at doing. And with that, a lot of players, we're kind of swifted in the wrong direction. They're like,
Yeah.
who's this guy trying to be the big papa? And I think with that, he made a lot of players uncomfortable. That's why Darius Slay got traded. That's why all these players left. And right now, they could have been on track how many years ago with the correct building strategy to start winning games. But in my opinion, they're still behind us. They fired Jim Caldwell at 9-7, and Matt Patricia barely reached 9-7. He didn't even reach 9-7 in any of the years he was in Detroit. Now you can make things about the talent, whatever, but if it was to come out that Kenny Galladay didn't play because of the Lions, I would not be surprised. In terms of the Saquon thing, and if anyone has checked out my channel specifically in terms of nitpicking videos and stuff, I'm a big rules guy. I will talk about the NFL rules on different occasions. Same thing with the MLB. I really hated the fact, and I will say I hated the fact that they did not have a preseason last year. I get,
absolutely.
I get the COVID stuff and all that, but look at week 2. How many players got injured? Saquon, Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, some of the other guys that got injured. Within the first 5 weeks, you're missing the conditioning. You're missing the OTAs. You're missing, they didn't put on pads till the middle of August. I mean, you're delaying stuff till almost the season begins. That just mind boggles to me.
Right.
Mind boggles me. And once again, I attributed that Saquon injury to having no preseason. And obviously, what a lot of people talk about is what's going on right now is that the NFLPA and the NFL are, pretty much debating on whether should we have virtual offseason, should we have regular offseason. The owners are pushing for the regular, while the NFLPA is pushing for the virtual, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But I guess in a laziness standpoint, now I'm not going to say the players are lazy or whatnot, but that's typically less work than a normal offseason. So I definitely attribute Saquon's injury to that. And to be honest, I'm mixed on this whole 17-game thing. Sure, it adds an extra game. Sure, the Giants go to Miami, but you're taking that one extra game. And, other than the fact that Saquon got injured, I really feel bad for these backups and for these undrafted free agents that never got a fair shot. We were talking about, Justin was a big proponent of this, some of the wide receivers that were undrafted for the Giants last season, Derek Dillon, Benjamin Victor, all these other guys that could have made the roster had there been a preseason, but there wasn't. There were no games. So, barely any of those guys made the roster as undrafted. Most of them ended up on the practice squad. If they weren't that, they went to somebody else's practice squad, and some of them were cut. So honestly, just having the preseason canceled was, it boggled my mind, and it didn't really make any sense. But yeah, that's where I attribute Saquon's injury to.
Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, with anything, right? I'm in the Air Force, so every year we have, or every 6 months, depending, we have to do a PT test. We have to be able to run a 1.5 miles. We get timed on how many push-ups and sit-ups we can do in a minute, and there's other components in there. But even just practicing to run, right? And I'm no Olympian when it comes to running or any superior athlete. Even just simple stretches, right? That makes a huge difference. And to think these people are putting their bodies through what they do, and they're not getting the time that they normally get, or their body is used to getting before getting that shell shock of the game. It makes a lot of sense, and I could totally see how that would happen. But I guess with that being said, I'll ask you, because you're invested in baseball and football, did you ever play either one of these sports growing up? Do you still play them? What positions? Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
So I never really got into football. In terms of playing him, I mean, I do it for fun, two-hand touch, tackling on occasion. I'm a skinny guy, so I really don't like getting hit a lot. But I've been playing baseball since about, I think it was 4th grade. I started in Little League. Then I tried out for the high school team in Pennsylvania. I didn't make it. The next year when I moved, I made the high school team. I'm still on the high school varsity team now. we're having, I would say, you know, limited season in terms of city terms. I think it's like 8 games or something like that because of the COVID restrictions and stuff like that. But I'm just happy to be on the team. Primary positions, I do pitch on occasion. I'm probably going to be pitching on Saturday in terms of a scrimmage because we had a Saturday scrimmage last week and we're going to have one this weekend. And also, basically, I'm a left fielder, right fielder kind of guy. It was never really, I mean, I played third base in my first year in junior varsity, but in terms of moving up to varsity, I'm more of an outfield guy. So that's kind of where I position myself. But I never really got into football. There was one year I was like, maybe I should try out, but my parents were like, absolutely not.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like mine and Diggy's story. Growing up, I was extremely small, and I'm still not a big guy. A lot of the viewers actually, when I got into a chat like a week ago, and I told them like I'm 5'7", 150 pounds, they're like, no way. Like on cam, you look like you're 6'2", and to me that was just like crazy. Like I don't feel like I look like a big guy. I don't know if they were just blowing smoke, but yeah, I've been a small guy, so I never got to actually like play contact football for my school because my parents kind of did the same thing. I was a bit of I hopped between sports a lot. I did wrestling a little bit. I did basketball for a little while. But the thing that I did stick with most was baseball. I was a catcher mostly, but you said you were a pitcher. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what kind of speeds do you got on your fastball?
Well, to be honest with you, I really don't like keep track of speeds and stuff. I always wanted to, but I could never like find out how much I threw on this or something like that. But in terms of pitching, it is hard.
Yeah.
I would say other than the mechanics and getting them correct, it's also a mental game for me because the first year I came back to Brooklyn and New York in general, I went into a summer baseball league and I had help there and whatnot. But just besides the mechanics, the mental game wasn't, I would pitch fine in warm-ups. And then when a batter stepped in the box, I always tried not hitting him. So sometimes I would twist the ball, not throwing a curveball or anything, trying to throw a fastball or something like that. And I always tried twisting, and it would always come off as like people thought I was throwing an ephus. I'm like, no, that's just a general mistake. That's a mental mistake with me. I'm not doing that on purpose. But obviously, with the training that we've been doing lately in baseball, I've gotten my mechanics better. I mean, I'll see how I pitch on Saturday, but in terms of like throwing the correct pitches, trying to get the fingerings on the ball, stepping off the mound correctly, leg kicks and stuff like that. Some stuff that you'll see in major league pitchers and whatnot, because one of the coaches on the team is actually a coach at one of the local colleges, and because he went there as an alumni and he went back as a pitching coach, so he obviously knows a thing or two about pitching. But I definitely obviously want to advance that game, even though I'm not pursuing it as a career. I would still, I've always liked pitching, and I want to, I would say, play that to the fullest extent and with the best effort.
So when it comes to baseball, we've said it a couple times. You cover the Yankees and you're a big Yankees fan. So why don't you go ahead and give me, because I don't really follow baseball that much anymore. Like I said, what's some things that you're excited about moving into next season? Because from everything I hear, right, other than the Brooklyn Nets, the Yankees have the most steam rolling behind them from the media as far as being able to do something going into the next season when it comes to New York sports. So why don't you give us some things that you're looking forward to see this season with the New York Yankees?
Well, Yankees fans that are watching this, probably, it's always one step away. It's always that one piece. And got Garrett Cole last year, nothing changed. We ended up getting beat by the Rays in the division series. In terms of not playing wise, and I'll get to that, with the players and stuff, I'm really looking forward to going back to the stadium because they increased the capacity to 20%. I could take the D train right up there. Tickets are kind of cheap as of right now, but I definitely, would want to go back there, hopefully sometime soon, and just get back into the stadium feeling, even if I have to wear a mask or whatever. Just being in the stadium, getting that vibe is going to be very exciting for me. And the last real, I would say, professional sporting event I went to was a Knicks game back in November of 2019 against the Charlotte Hornets. We lost that game, being the Knicks. But
so, are you a New York Knicks fan as well? Not a Brooklyn Nets fan?
I am a New York Knicks fan, yes. In terms of players, I'm really excited for this rotation. Is in the starting rotation as of right now. Got some pitchers in the off season. Obviously, there's some young guys in the minor leagues that are waiting to come up. Guys like Divey Garcia and Clark Schmidt once he gets healthy. Really excited. I really hope that Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge stay healthy this year. I think that's going to be a brink, or at least a piece, if this team does well or not. I really hope Gary Sanchez, who's the catcher, I really hope he does well. He started off spring training with a bang, but he finished with a sub 200 batting average, and again, that doesn't sit right with me.
Right.
And I know, Aaron Boone, or at least people, I would say, characterize him as this, the home run wins every game. There's small baseball as well, bunting, stealing bases, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Aaron Boone is like one of them analytical managers, just like Kevin Cash, and who uses the bullpen a ton, who really doesn't use speed guys, steal base and stuff like that, which really pisses me off because of all the fundamentals that were there like how many years ago are just getting taken away for some of these, just analytical stuff. And just because a computer tells you, oh, you got to put this guy in. And one of the things that pissed me off and frequently does with Aaron Boone is like if a guy's on a hot streak, let's just say he's got a 10-game hitting streak, he will take him out because the analytics say so. Oh, he doesn't match this pitcher. So that's kind of, where I stand in terms of baseball analytics. And I'm really excited once again, because the rotation, hopefully Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, they hopefully stay healthy this year.
So a lot of that conversation was I hope, right? What drives that? Do you not have faith that these people can stay healthy? Do they have like an injury history, much like a Dory Jackson or something like that? Like, what gives you that? What's that devil sitting on your shoulder holding you back, going from this is the Yankees' year? You know what I mean? What's holding you back from saying something like that?
So I'm gonna actually start backwards. I'm gonna start with Gary Sanchez, then move on to Judge and Stanton. With Gary Sanchez, ever since, and this is my framed opinion, ever since Girardi left, I feel like he hasn't been the same. I think Girardi kept him on track in terms of like, you need to run the bases properly. You don't need to jog to first base, stuff like that. But ever since Boone has come along, he's hit subpar 200, below 200 in the past couple of years. And, if he's not hitting homers, he's striking out. And that really sets me off, just get a base hit, just get a double or something like
right.
that. You don't even, if it's a double in the gap and you just take it as a single, I'll take it as that because it's a base hit. Now, in terms of Stanton and Judge, they traded for Stanton, in terms of Stanton, he opted into his contracts. They have him for the next couple of years. And there's a lot of contracts around baseball that, it's unlike the NFL in terms of contracts and extensions, because you see guys like Fernando Tatis and Francisco Lindor getting these 13, 14 years of extensions. And that was kind of similar, but a smaller length with Stanton and the Marlins. But when Derek Jeter, the part-time owner there, kind of said, we need to start rebuilding this thing, he traded some of the star players over there. Stanton traded him to the Yankees. And a lot of people make jokes because Jeter was a former Yankee. But Stanton and Judge, they're power guys. And Nate said this on one of the Hub's podcasts or live shows or whatever, and it was kind of on a different subject related to football, but it kind of relates. As players get better at the sport, their body can't take it as much, and in terms of baseball, they can't stick it out the full 162 games.
Right.
So, guy like DJ LeMahieu, who's not a power hitter, I mean, he won the batting title was it like 2 years ago, but you compare him to Judge and Stan, they're not the same group of players. But, LeMahieu, in my opinion, can play or has a better chance of playing 162 games more than Stanton and Judge, just because Judge and Stanton always try to swing for the home run and they pull a muscle.
All right, man. Well, I hope the best for the New York Yankees. Like I said, when I played baseball, I always I say I support the Yankees, right? Like you said, there's a difference in like being a fan of a team and liking a team. I can support the Yankees. It's just hard to be that super fan like I am with the Giants because, like I said, I just don't pay attention to baseball much. But why don't you go ahead and give me, one story from your life? Doesn't matter when it happened, just something that either is really funny or something that's impacted you in a big way. Just something like a story that anytime someone hears this story, if they've listened to my podcast, they're going to go, That was Big Blue in the Bronx. That's his story. So just go ahead if you need to take a second, think about it. But yeah, just give me something.
So, a lot of the funny stories, and I thought about this as before going on the podcast and stuff like that, is a lot of the good stories and memories I have are at Yankee games or at Giant games. So the one of the Yankee games I was at was actually June or actually July. It was the day before 4th of July in 2018 with the Yankees versus the Braves. We had left field seats, stuff like that. So there were these two drunk guys sitting in front of us, and they were drunk, so they didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
But there was a Mets fan a couple of sections above us talking trash to Yankee fans. And then they turned around and they said, Bobby Bo, shut the F up. And they started cursing them and stuff like that. So he was talking trash to a point. They turn around and start going, a-hole, a-hole. Obviously, they didn't say a-hole.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? Let me join in. So I started doing it with them as well. And then a couple innings later, when Ronald Acuna was playing left field, the guy behind us, who was a different guy, he was going, Ronald Acuna's chops at Victoria's Secret. And then that, and I thought it was funny. That was probably one of the best games I was at in terms of like the people surrounding me. And the Yankees won that game, so it made the experience even better.
Awesome. All right, so I think we're going to get to the part of the podcast here where I do some rapid fire questions with you, right? It's just going to be simple questions. Whatever the first thing comes to your mind, go ahead and name it off. We'll just raffle from one question to the next. And if you want to elaborate on any of your answers, we can go back and visit those at the end. All right?
Sure.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and start. Just go ahead and give me your favorite board or card game. What is it?
Card game, I would say blackjack. Board game, I would probably say Monopoly.
Okay. All right, what about your favorite musical artist?
That's a tough one. I'm a classic rock guy. I'm probably going to say AC/DC.
Okay. What about besides your wallet or your phone, what's a must-have item on your person at all times?
Wallet or phone? That's interesting. House key would be one of them. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I'm probably missing something important, but my house key would probably be one of them because there's tendencies where I forget my house key and I have to ask my grandparents for the spare.
All right, well, we talked about what you want to do for a job, and that's media coverage of sports. Name a job that you'd be really bad at.
I'm good with computers. Probably in the MTA, probably just trains and stuff like that.
Okay.
Working with electricity, because I am blind to that stuff.
What about, how about your favorite cake? Are you a cake guy?
Ice cream cake.
Okay. All right, what about your favorite beverage?
Pepsi.
Pepsi? Okay, so you're still in school, so this answer might change. What is your favorite subject in school thus far?
I'd go with gym class.
All right, how about what's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear. I've gotten over my fear of heights as of right now. I know you said leave it for the end, but I just want to make a quick point. When I was little, I used to be scared of looking up at tall buildings.
Huh.
But probably in the last couple of years, I would say losing a family member close to me.
Yeah, I guess that kind of resonates to the world we're living in today. You know, nobody's promised tomorrow. You just got to appreciate every moment. But yeah, how about a dream vacation? If you could go anywhere with your family right now, where would you want to go?
Put COVID aside, I would say Florida.
Florida? All right. How about you got a celebrity crush? Someone in the movies that you just look at and go, man, she is gorgeous.
Oh my god. What was I gonna say? For a little while, a couple of years ago, I don't have a defined one, but for a couple of years, I guess, or I would say 2 years, it was Vanessa Ray. She is, if anyone has watched the show Blue Bloods, she's one of the cops on there. She's, there's this whole family called the Reagans, and one of the cops who's a beat officer. That was, they were partners for a couple of years. So
Okay.
I don't know if she's still on the show or not, but
And we'll end it off with this one. What's a hidden talent of yours? Something that not a lot of people know you can do.
I'll give you two: computer technology
Okay.
and guitar.
And playing guitar? Are you a rhythm or a lead player? Acoustic, electric? Do you do the chords or the notes?
Electric. Uh, and I don't really look at chords. I usually do tabs, so I think they're easier. I used to do
Right.
chords, but tabs because once I discovered them, I kind of got addicted to them in terms of playing.
What kind of guitar do you got?
I have a very rare one. It's a Les Paul, but it's under the company name of Cimar.
Okay.
Ciar, and they're very rare this day and age.
Yeah, I'm an acoustic player myself. I've been playing for a long time. I was probably 7 years old when I started. So I mean, you're talking 18 years now. I've been playing guitar. I got a Taylor. It's a 214 CE for anybody who's watching this who might know. I don't know if you know what that is, but yeah, that's my guitar. I've had several. Used to have an old Martin. I had a Fender Telecaster for a while, but I ended up getting rid of both the Martin and the Telecaster to be able to get the Taylor. So that was always something I wanted to go ahead and make a move and get. But before we go ahead and close this out, if you got any final thoughts, upcoming things on your podcast, some exciting things that you're looking forward to on your channel, directions you want to head, just go ahead and plug that real quick, and then I'll share my final thoughts and we'll close it out.
Okay, so obviously, thank you to Max for having me on. He does something different, and as I said, in the beginning of the podcast, there's a lot of people who try to, content create on the Giants or whatever. But Max does something different. He interviews the content creators, gets to know them behind the scenes. It's kind of, the Dan Rather of things, but younger in that aspect. In terms of stuff coming up on the channel, as I said, I kind of delayed the podcast and I'm coming out with more videos as of late. I'll look for more Yankee stuff, but at the same time, more Giant stuff because we are getting closer to the draft, live streams and stuff like that. This will probably premiere at some point tomorrow or something like that. I mean, I honestly don't know your schedule. I know you do Wednesday 6:30, but that's your schedule, right?
Yeah, I switched the times a little bit. Initially, I was doing 4:30. Then people were like, "Hey, push it back." Some people are still at work that time, so I've just kind of Wednesday is the goal. If sometimes I have trouble getting an interview in before then, push it back to Thursday or so. But yeah, so around 6:30 somewhere there, probably tomorrow. This will be live.
Okay, so with that time, 8 o'clock, 8:10 p.m. Me, my best friend Sean, my brother Luca is the Boys in the Big Apple podcast. We usually do on Mondays, but we switched it to Wednesdays, the day before opening day. So we're obviously going to be talking about baseball and the Yankees. We're actually going to have a reporter on who basically kind of behind the scenes of the Staten Island Yankees shutting down. They're suing the New York Yankees as of right now, so he knows a little bit about that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff behind there that we'll cover. We're also going to talk about expectations for the upcoming season. And then Thursday for opening day, hope to God they don't postpone the game because they're actually talking about rain in the morning, but it's supposed to stop at 11. We'll be live for opening day and, having reactions, stuff like that. Obviously, usual Q&A. We'll see if we'll let people on. I'm always open to viewers coming on and talking whatever.
Awesome, man. Sounds great. Look forward to it. Hope you have a great season. First off, I want to thank you for coming on, man. I kind of reached out to you last minute here. I appreciate your flexibility. And thanks for being the youngest member I've had on yet on this channel. It was a blast, man. I had a good time talking with you, getting to know you a little bit. Some things that, like I said, I hadn't talked to you much, right? So this is just as much for me to get to know you as it is for the people who are gonna watch this episode. But yeah, thanks for joining. I had a blast. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope to see y'all tomorrow. And next week, I'm going to try to get a couple of people that I've had on the channel so far. And Alex, if you're available, we talked a little bit about that. Next, probably Thursday, we'll be going live so you guys can come in and ask your own questions in the chat. Have a couple guests that I've had, so that'll be an exciting time. We did that once already. Just try to shuffle the guests around a little bit and get some people on again. But yeah, Alex, I appreciate you joining me in. I hope you have a good night. Thanks everybody for watching, and until next time, peace.
Peace, everyone.